Welcome, everybody. I'm Kyle Hines, and I'll be hosting the Players Podcast, a GTM family production in partnership with the EuroLeague Players Association. I will be having in-depth conversations with current and former EuroLeague players about important topics that many athletes face on and off the basketball court. Stay tuned for more episodes. Welcome, everybody, to another edition, a very special episode today of the Players Podcast, presented to you by the EuroLeague Players Association. Today, we have a very special guest, one of the, most well-traveled and successful basketball players that has played the last number of years and has done amazing things off the court. My guy, fellow Gate 7 alumni, Josh Childress. Josh, how's everything?
All is well, Kyle. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. I can't complain. Before we start, I'd like to start off by listing, some of your accolades and, kind of getting to your resume a little bit for the fans and for the viewers that don't know you. First off, you were the sixth pick of the NBA draft in 2004. You've had a long career, playing with the Atlanta Hawks, with the Olympiacos, as we mentioned, the Phoenix Suns, the Brooklyn Nets, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Sydney Kings, which we're going to talk about a little bit later because we have something in common there. The Texas Legends, 2 years in Japan and another year in Australia. And your individual accomplishments are incredible as well. First of all, you were a parade All-American in high school, a Stanford graduate, which may be the most impressive thing, on your resume. First team All Pac-10, all rookie team, all EuroLeague team, numerous, Greek League accomplishments, NBL first team, and now, which is something that we're going to get into today. As you can see, the logo in the background, you're the CEO of Lanspire Group, and amongst other things that you have done in your career, both on and off the basketball court. Man, I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time for stepping in and being a part of the Players Podcast today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. Obviously, accolades aside, man, it's been a heck of a journey. I've been very blessed, and growing up where I grew up was probably similar to the city where you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to get out and to do what we've done. So, just want to make sure that we always appreciate that and make light of that. So it's been a blessing for sure.
Definitely. Now we're going to fast forward right into your EuroLeague career, and you were kind of I guess you would say a pioneer of some sorts. I kind of put you in a group of you, Earl Boykins, those guys that were at the time. Before you kind of came along and decided to go overseas, overseas was almost looked as, a lot of guys where their careers were over. You have guys like, I guess you could say Dominique Wilkins and, Roy Tarpley and some other guys, that, once their careers were over, they went, overseas. But you were kind of a pioneer, whereas that, in the midst of your prime, that you decided to, take your career overseas and play for Olympiacos. So, talk about what went into that decision and what went into that process for you.
Yeah, man, the decision really was based on the restricted free agent process in the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially finding a way to sidestep that. I was, I spent 4 years in Atlanta, was what I thought was part of the core of that team. And, a new GM comes in and tells me to go out and test the market. And I did. I had a couple other teams that I was looking at that he didn't necessarily want to do any signing trades with. And so it just created a situation where, this Olympiacos deal was pitched to a number of other guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I sat down with them, I understood their vision, got a chance to go to Athens, see the facilities, see, Athens in the summer. And, the decision was easy after that. So I was able to not only, get a contract that was nice and was quality for me and my family, but also an opportunity to, step out of this restricted free agent process and, and still play ball at a high level.
Now, what were your initial thoughts? Like you said, you talked to the owners of Olympiacos at the time, and then when you went to Greece that very first time, Athens is a lot different than Compton, California, or Atlanta, Georgia. So what were your initial thoughts when you stepped off the plane that first time for that first visit?
Man, it was incredible, and
Mm-hmm.
mainly because there was a fair amount of attention there, that I didn't realize that Olympiacos had.
Mm-hmm.
You think about European basketball, and you see. Well, I'd only seen really soccer to that point. See the fans, they're hyped, they're in the stadium, going crazy, and I never really experienced that. I mean, Stanford is a pretty small university. Our fans in Atlanta, we didn't necessarily sell out every game. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
that. So, having that sort of passionate kind of rabid fan was new. So for me, it was like it was cool. It was fun. It was a new thing that I hadn't experienced before, and that kind of in combination, like I said, with being in Athens in the summer, and just seeing the lifestyle and how guys enjoy living there. I spoke with a few guys as well. It made the decision a little bit easier for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're both Olympiacos alumni, I guess you can say, and
Yeah,
there's nothing better than Greece or Athens in the summertime.
for
I mean,
sure, man.
it's amazing. Where'd you stay at when you lived there?
I was in Father.
Yeah, same with me. Same with me. And
Yeah,
there's nothing better than Glufada or Vula Mente in the summertime.
yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
Now, what did you know about EuroLeague basketball before you came over? Because I mean, honestly, for me, like I didn't know anything about overseas basketball at all growing up. As American kids, our first dream is the NBA, and that's it. And overseas basketball is kind of an afterthought. But what did you know about EuroLeague before you came? Did you know anything? Did you watch any games? Did you have any? Did you know anything about it?
Yeah, I didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that a couple of my friends played over there, so I reached out to those guys, asked some questions. And obviously you see, your high level guys from Europe come over to the league, and some have success, some don't. But I was going into that league, really unaware of what it was going to look like. I'd watched some stuff on YouTube and tried to do as much due diligence as I could, but you never really know until you get in it, and you understand how high level the basketball is in Europe, in EuroLeague specifically.
On the court, what was the biggest adjustment compared to the NBA for you?
I think it was the strategy behind the
Mhm.
games. We we had a heck of a team
Yeah.
that we still, I think, tried to strategize a bit more than other teams, or I don't say we overdid it, but you got a team full of horses. You got to let the horses go out and roll, right?
Yeah.
And that was a change, because in the league you let your guys just get after it, and it was very much based on like strategic plays and making sure that you follow the game plan, which I understand, but that was a big adjustment period for me, in coming over there.
We talked about the adjustment on the court, but what about the adjustment off the court? I was listening to an interview you were doing a little bit earlier, and you were talking about how, once you got to Athens, you said it was difficult, but I want you to explain a little bit about, your mentality once you got there. You talked about in the interview how, you kind of went with almost like an open mind, a mindfulness about going over there, because you said that, as a young kid that you can never fathom, having the opportunity to, to be in Athens, Greece. So talk about that mentality and talk about where that kind of stemmed from for you.
Yeah. So, once again, never in my wildest dreams imagine playing basketball in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and at that level. And so when I came over, having spent 3 years at Stanford, I was exposed to a wide range of people, uh, from a bunch of different backgrounds. So I'd been able to, find my way in that world, quite comfortably. And I was going to do the same when I came to Athens. And so I spent a fair amount of time in my first kind of few weeks there, a few months there, just learning the culture, figuring out where to go, where not to go,
Hmm.
who you talk to, who you don't talk to, kind of all those things that you do when you move to a new place. Eventually I realized that, I didn't like the attention like that. You're walking down the street or you're at the grocery store and somebody just wants to show you their Panathinaikos tattoo or the
Yeah.
Olympiacos tattoo, whatever, and it's just like it's just a
Yeah.
constant barrage of this. And there comes a time where you're in it so much that you just need a break. And
Exactly.
so
Yeah, I agree.
towards the second half of my first year there, I spent a lot more time in the house. In my second year, the same, just because it got overwhelming sometimes.
Now you were the highest. You mentioned the contract, but you were the highest paid, player outside of the NBA. And you got a lot of attention because of that. There was a lot of, whether or not it was, articles from the American press or articles from the foreign press. Did you ever feel like any added pressure because of that? Because the weight of your contract and the expectations that kind of came with that.
Of course, of
Hmm.
course. I mean, that weighed heavily on me, especially my first year. Um, you know, Coming over to Europe, having that adjustment period, and coming in there feeling like I needed to, put up 20 and 10,
Yeah.
and have a coach that said, "I want you to be a part of the system." And so I'm balancing that in my mind, and I've always prided myself on being a very coachable player. And so, from the outside looking in, people probably would question, my effectiveness, my numbers, all that stuff. And for me, it was just a juggling act where I was trying to, um, you know, live up to the contract while also trying to fit into a system that, the coach wanted to create. So, it's definitely pressure there. I dealt with it the best I could. I ended up that first year, I lost my father as well. So I was dealing with some personal things, that kind of impacted me on the court. But, it was, it's a different kind of beast when you got that pressure and people are expecting you to do X, Y, Z because of the contract that you have. And I think that's a unique quality that athletes, or unique situation that athletes have to deal with, right?
Hmm.
People know what you make,
Hmm.
right? And they always measure you based on that metric, and it just creates a dynamic where your value isn't necessarily always tied to your contract, because your value to that team is based on what you bring to that team, not necessarily the amount of points and rebounds and assists that you can put up on the floor. So definitely felt pressure, but that's a part of the game.
Yeah, I think the positive of that, for a player like me, was that my first exposure of overseas life was seeing you, because you went over and because you had garnered so much attention, whether or not it was in Slam magazine or the features they did on you on ESPN or different things like that. My view of overseas basketball was, seeing it through your perspective. And I think it was more comforting for me when I went to come overseas, because I was like, wow, I was like, even though I didn't know you, but I was like, Josh Childress is able to do this. He's able to, live this, this life in Athens, Greece. And I think it helped make my adjustment a lot easier, knowing, it made it more comfortable for me. So do any other guys, come to you and say that, and any other young guys ever come to you and talk to you about that?
Yeah, and I'd say guys talk to me more about just opening their eyes to
Hmm.
to opportunities in Greece,
Yeah.
or in Europe in
In Europe in
general,
general.
uh, and feeling comfortable and confident in being able to make a living for themselves, providing for their families, and not always feeling the need to chase the NBA dream.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
NBA obviously is the NBA, right? And it's the pinnacle of professional basketball. But guys do very well for themselves over in Europe, and are able to create long, successful careers, in doing so. And so I've had a few guys come to me and really just mention that they were thankful that I showed them that that was a possibility, and they didn't have to chase the NBA, at length, and end up in the process missing out on a fair amount of dollars for themselves and their family.
Yeah, man. I want to thank you, and I appreciate you because, like you said, I mean, you definitely, you were the the pioneer. I guess sometimes the pioneer has to take the shots on the the front line sometimes, but you definitely showed that there's definitely life outside of the NBA, and you can still be successful and still like you said, take care of your family and still be afforded many other opportunities that many people thought were only existed inside the NBA. So
Yeah,
just want to
I
say thank you
appreciate
for that.
that, bro. Appreciate that.
Now I have to ask this question, and one of the things that being on the Olympiacos and understanding the Panathinaikos rivalry, everybody I've talked to has a story, Olympiacos or Panathinaikos story. So first, how do you describe the Olympiacos Panathinaikos rivalry to people that don't that have never been a part of it? And then the second part of the question is, do you have a story? Because you played in some heated games. I mean, there was times where I think at the time they were they won eight championships in a row in the Greek league or something like that. And they were defending EuroLeague champions one of the years before or something like that. So you guys are considered the two best teams, probably in EuroLeague in one city. So I know you guys had a lot of different rivalries. So, what is your best, moment or best memory from those games?
Yeah, so I mean, and not everybody gets this reference, but I would describe that rivalry as like the Bloods and the Crips on steroids.
That's
Like,
how I
it's
say
just,
it. That's how I say it. That's how I say it.
it's like on site. They just getting after
Yeah.
it. And it's a long, heated rivalry. You're born into, being an Olympiacos or Panathinaikos fan, and like I mentioned, the tattoos, and people. It's life. It's a lifestyle for them, and so that and the passion that it breeds is just crazy to experience. And I say my first exposure to it and my last exposure, two stories I'll tell. So first exposure, we have our first away game at Laka, and coach comes to me and says, "Hey, Josh, you haven't experienced this before. I'm not going to start you tonight. I want you to just take this in, understand what this is going to be like." So I'm like, all right, I played in crazy places. Like, why are you acting like this? And we walk in, we go through layup lines, and all of a sudden I look over, and they're like fanning this area right by our bench. And I'm like, what's going on, dude? And so I saw the net, that protects us, was on fire. And so somebody shot a flare down at our bench and shot it, and it landed in the towel bag, and the towel bag caught on fire. And it's just like, this is the start of the game. And so I'm just like, all right, what the heck did I get myself into? And then fast forward to my last game in Greece. It was at Seth, and it was in the playoffs, and we would go out to warm up, and everybody's like coughing, and I'm like coughing, eyes watering, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? So they usher us back into the locker room, and we asked them what's happening, and the police had to shoot tear gas in the gym because our fans were going crazy, right? So had to let it air out, had to go back out, warm up again, and we played a game. Game's not going well, and so started to see stuff flying from the stands. And I have a couple of my buddies there that game, and I look over, and they're just like, dude, this is crazy. So the fans had gone into the bathrooms. They'd broken down the toilets. They were throwing like pieces of ceramic. They were throwing toilet handles, stuff from the faucets, sinks. My buddy got hit with a bottle that was filled with urine and feces. And it was just a crazy thing. So then somebody throws something on kind of near Panathinaikos' bench. And one of the things I'll never forget, Yotam Halperin told me, he said, Josh, whatever you do, if anything touches the floor, never touch it. Never go grab it, never kick. He's telling me the story of somebody that got two of their fingers blown off going to pick up something off the floor. And yeah, sure enough, this was like an M80 or some sort of like firecracker or something that they threw on the floor and made a black mark on our floor. So It's wild, man. It's wild. You know, you obviously you've been in some of the other places with, you know, like Serbia. They got
Hmm.
the laser pointer on rolls of receipt paper. They were throwing hot coins at you, batteries, whatever. So it's a jungle out there, man.
Yeah, man. I think like I said, I think some of the people you tell this to and tell these stories to that don't understand it or don't experience, or I try to tell it to my friends, you know, back home, and I'm sure you've done the same, that they don't get it. Like, and it's
Yeah.
hard to really, unless you experienced it, like it's hard to really put in words. Like for my experience, like we were playing in the cup, and at the time, I don't know how it was when you guys, but at the time when we played, the cup was the only time that both fans from either team could be there. So we were playing at the gym in Glafada, at the old airport, and the Olympiacos fans was on one side, Panathinaikos fans was on one side, and I'm out there just warming up, and they're shooting flares back and forth at each other. And for whatever reason, I don't know why. I guess I was the target or it was a misfire. Somebody shot a flare. I'm at the free throw line, you know, working on my free throws. Somebody shot a flare, hit me right in the back of my head. Boom! I fall on the ground.
Ah.
My warm up pants are on fire. They pick me up, take me to the locker room. Right. So this is like right before the coach starts the speech. So I'm sitting there and I'm just like, you know, still a little, you know, like what's going on. So the coach just gets up and just draws the play, and I'm just looking and I'm like, yo, we're not going to mention anything about me getting hit with a flare in my head. And you know how it is in Greece, and some of the Greek players, they're like, no, this is just this Olympiacos Panathinaikos. And we just kept it moving like nothing even happened. I was like, man, this is
Hilarious. Dude.
yeah, man. It's somebody really needs to do a deep dive for like a book about the rivalry and like different player stories, because like I said, everybody I've ever talked to, and I'm sure the same for you, has a story or has some type of experience about the rivalry. So
Sure, for sure. And that,
now,
those stories are crazy, man. And just to think through just the deep rooted level of hate that they have for each other, it's insane.
it's personal. Like I've heard stories of like, you know, like family members, like, you know, one family member or a cousin is Olympiacos and somebody else is Panathinaikos, and that day of the game they don't talk to each other, like they don't associate with each other. Like it's intense, man. It's intense, man.
For sure, sure.
Intense. Now, I want to talk about the EuroLeague Final Four, and this is another thing that I tell a lot of people and my friends, and you know those you know outside of European basketball is you know is an amazing event. It's something like you know no other. You know, some I guess you can kind of compare it to the NCAA Final Four, but
Mhm.
the amount of you know fanatics, you know, and the amount of fans and the environment is unreal. And you had the opportunity to play in two of them, and two of the games that you played were probably with two of the I guess, super intense games. You know, the first one was in 2009 in Berlin with Panathinaikos, the semifinal game. I think that's correct. And in
Yeah.
2010 was Paris with Partizan, who has another, you know, crazy fan group. So, you know,
Mhm.
for those that don't know, or for those that haven't experienced the Final Four, talk about that Final Four experience, you know, and just the atmosphere and everything about that goes along with that.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible atmosphere, and I would. I haven't been to an NCAA Final Four, but I would rival it to that sort of
Mhm.
energy. You know, the whole city is, uh, you know, is basketball. You know, and everywhere you see banners, you see, you know, marketing materials. You know, it was incredible. I mean, I was I was just blown away at the level of professionalism
Mhm.
and the standard that this is at, because once again, people don't understand the level of European and EuroLeague basketball. And I mean, this is just it's a class act. So going in there in the arena, seeing essentially four quadrants
Yeah.
of teams, and their respective styles, how they respond to all the other fans, was just it was unlike anything I've ever seen, man. I was definitely thankful for that. I mean, we ended up first year there, we lost to Panathinaikos in the semis, in a heated game, which was unfortunate. And then second year, we ended up making it to the finals and just overmatched with Barcelona. But I mean, it's one of the best experiences I've ever had, playing basketball.
And I wanted you to talk about that the semifinal putback, which is like one of the most historical plays in EuroLeague Final Four history. Now, how did you have the awareness to know that that I think it was Milos that shot that shot? How did you know the awareness to know that Milos, like, you came from the wing of the 3-point line, if I'm not mistaken, to to catch the ball and tap it in? Reminds me of what play was that? The college basketball play. Was it Villanova and Georgetown, I think, or something like that, where NC State, and they shot the ball and they had to tip in. It reminds me
Yeah.
very similar to that. So, talk about that play and just your, break that down and your awareness to kind of know that the ball was coming off and you scored it.
Yeah, I mean, my whole career, I was, I always crashed the glass. I mean, I was, I led the Pac-10 in rebounding as a wing. I was one of the leading rebounders as a guard in the league, my first few years. That's just a part of my game. I just hit the glass. And, whether Milos would miss or made the shot, I was going to be in there somewhere trying to just make sure that, I gave us a chance. And yeah, it was just luck would have it. It just came right to my hands. And I just tip dunked that thing in. And I can't tell you, number one, obviously, it would have been a massive upset if we lost that game.
Yeah.
But, just the extra life that we gave ourselves on the bench, everybody was hyped. Pat Beverly came over there, punching me in the chest and going crazy. And to this day, I'm not even gonna lie, I get death threats from partisan fans.
Really? They're still not over it?
Still not over it. I get death threats. I get, F you, this, that, I hope you this and this. I mean,
wow.
they still hate me over there. So, for whatever reason, man, I made some enemies, but, it was definitely a big moment for the club. And, I know that our fan base was happy that we went to the finals for the first time in a while.
Definitely. Now, like I've said before, you've been well-traveled in your basketball career. You've played in just about almost every continent, or lived in almost every continent. Now, was that a conscious choice, after coming from EuroLeague and kind of experiencing, what you experienced in Athens, to go to Australia, to go to, Japan, to, experience these different, different places. And then, how has that made you, a better person, being able to experience and what did you kind of take away from each one of those places that you played at?
Yes. So doing it in Greece let me know that I could do it,
Mm-hmm.
that I could go live somewhere else and be comfortable, be fine, play there, and do my thing. And after I was with the Pelicans, I ended up having my second sports hernia surgery. So then they waived me. And, at that time I was just like, man, I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish my degree.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is it. Right. I was like 10 years in at the time, I think, and mentally I was like, all right, 10 years. So it's a great career. My body's starting to break down on me. Let me go here. Let me get my degree and kind of finish this thing out. And, I was on campus and like I was going to hoop and the open runs with the Stanford players. You just realize you got a little bit more left in the tank. And so I was still getting paid by Phoenix. So it wasn't like a financial thing for me. And it was just like, all right, well, where do I want to go that I haven't been before? And our seasons always mismatched with Australia because I always wanted to visit there.
Yeah.
But it was always I was always playing during their summer, and so I didn't want to go in the winter because that's pointless. So it just so happened that I got a call from my agent. He said, "What do you think about Australia?" They were looking at some other guys, but if you're interested, and so I took that opportunity also to then be connected with some business people in Sydney. And that was a part of my ask in going. I mean, the salary cap there is nothing like EuroLeague and nothing like the NBA. So it was just an opportunity for me to go out and invest in myself by getting some real good time to sit with some business people in a market that spoke English, had similar business acumen and kind of principles to the US. Australia is kind of the test market for a lot of companies that then, launch here in the US. So that was my strategy behind it, and I loved it. I loved that time over there. Japan was a little different story, but Australia was more about just going over and learning and living in a country that I'd wanted to visit.
Now, for those that don't know, you were able to, like you said, you spoke with and met with a lot of business people over in Australia, and now it gave you the opportunity to become an owner of a team. So, which is something that we now have in common. I've joined the I guess the ownership group of the Bisbee Bullets recently. So when our teams play against each other, man, we gotta do a wager or something where I gotta talk some trash to you or something.
Congrats.
Thank you. Just recently happened. So appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. But just talk about that. I mean, just the opportunity to be an owner and why you chose the NBL and to be in Australia.
Yeah. So Australian League, from when I first went over there to now, has grown exponentially. The league has gotten more professional. Larry Kesselman came in and bought the league.
Yeah,
and
done an amazing job.
Great job in the brand. So with that, I think the ownership component is kind of broken up into two things for me. Number one, it's just spending 15 years playing. For teams and dealing with that, like it's just a really cool, I guess, honor and privilege to now be a part of the ownership group, and try to create a culture and a vision and, something successful on the other side of it. Right. So that's one component. And then two, having the chance to go out and spend some time in Australia, on a yearly basis for me is also, a big deal. And I have some lifelong friends there that I love to kind of continue to see and all that. So the combination of that, in addition to it, I think being a good investment, is why I ended up doing the deal. The league has done what it's done now without a major TV deal. Had success with, Terrence Ferguson, LaMelo, RJ Hampton, this kid, Jay Sean Tate, just came out, Torrey Craig, you're seeing more and more guys, transition from the NBL to the NBA. And I think that, now you got the NBA reacting to that, right? They got this G League team that they want to create to kind of keep kids here. But, more and more guys are going to continue to make that transition to the NBA out of the NBL, which I think is going to continue to help grow the league.
I agree. I mean, I think it's the league has definitely. I've been following the league for a while now, and I think like the potential and the growth factor of the league is incredible. And for them to be able, you said, they haven't been to do what they've done without a major TV deal, and only have 8 or 9 teams in the league currently. If they're able to continue this on this rate, I mean, it's just has a lot of, like I said, it has a lot of great opportunities.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I want to get into what the main topic of our conversation, of our podcast is today, and that is athletes getting involved in real estate investment, real estate development. As we've seen, I think recently, which has always kind of been, but I think it was more passively in the past. Athletes have taken a more active role in real estate developing, whether or not it's buying whole, whether or not it's flipping or wholesaling, or like you're doing, large scale development deals. So I wanted to talk to you more about it because you have experience, and you're somebody, that has recently retired, and, you've kind of, dived right in and you've had tremendous success. So first off, I want to talk, why real estate? What was it about real estate that, was the asset class that you chose to, spend your time in and invest, majority of, I guess you can say, your finances, also your time, and why'd you choose real estate as the second part of your, of your career?
Yeah. So real estate for me, going way back to like my great grandparents, they were landowners in the South. And that wasn't normal, right? And so I saw the power of what real estate did to then provide for my grandparents and then my mom and, and the family in general. And that was all done through, real estate. And so fast forward to college, my scholarship donor at Stanford is a real estate tycoon.
Mm-hmm.
And, I saw the power of that too, right? You took me and probably another 100 plus people who may not have been able to afford a Stanford education, put us through school through real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And, as I played, I invested in and dabbled in a bunch of different, sectors, venture capital, private equity, and the like. And I just always kind of came back to real estate somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And so my last year, kind of when I thought I was going to retire, but 2018, I ended up buying a commercial property here in Southern California. And that was like my first foray into larger scale properties. I'd invested as an LP in a number of deals before that, but this was like mine. And the cash flows, the tax benefits, all of those things, and quite frankly, like not having to manage it day to day,
Yeah.
was appealing. And so that kind of in conjunction with just it being a tangible asset that I can go walk my property. I can go,
Yeah.
I can go walk the property with my daughter and say, hey, this is yours in the future. That's tangible, and it's not something that, I have to, it's not like just an investment that I made that isn't doing anything, I have no control over. So, all those things in combination is why I chose the real estate space.
Now, why would you recommend or why would you suggest athletes to become real estate investors? To me, I think the biggest positive, and you already named, some of the tax incentives and cash flow and possibilities for generational wealth. But I think to me, why many athletes kind of gear towards real estate is the whole tangible assets. It's a tangible thing. Like you said, it's not like stocks. It's not like, other investments. But, to you, in your opinion, and somebody's experience, why would you tell athletes or an athlete to, to invest or start investing in real estate?
I think there's a number of reasons. One being, real estate has created more millionaires in this country than I think any other space.
Absolutely.
So that's the financial component of it. As you are spending so much time honing your craft, and being active in your current profession that pays the bills, having something that you don't have to actively manage is a benefit. I mean, you mentioned the tax benefits, and I just think that like it's something that you can grow over time, and you can start incrementally. You can purchase a single family residence in the town that you live in, and buy one every year that you play. You play 10, 15 years, you got 10, 15 properties that are cash flowing, $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And, that's something that you can set up, and kind of keep for the long haul. And I think as athletes, we, money comes, money goes, you got so many other things that you're doing. You're trying to manage, making sure that you're on top of your game, having something that you can kind of passively, create a portfolio around, and provide long-term stability for you and your family is powerful for me. So all those things kind of combined is why I think athletes should take a look into real estate. In addition to, like I said, the tax component is a major one.
I thought I seen it on your Instagram when you said, the whole thing about buying, one property a year for every year that you played. I think that was a super simplified strategy that it's something that every athlete, or I don't mean every athlete, but every person is something that they can maintain. So I think that's awesome advice. Now I have a question about, one of the things that most athletes, because especially overseas guys, we're away from, our home or away from, our local community, for a long period of time. And a lot of guys feel like they don't have the opportunity to, manage or afraid to get in real estate. What are some ways that you, like you said, you got your start in 2018, but what were you doing up to that point to kind of educate yourself so that way, about real estate, so that way when you were finished and when you were, able to, start buying properties, how did you prepare yourself, up to that time while you were still playing?
YouTube University.
Yeah.
Look, you got a ton of
I
time.
got a PhD in YouTube University.
You got a ton of time, ton of downtime. You're on the road. You can spend an hour a day, checking out, buy strategies or how to, how to acquire properties, for little to no money down. You spend a fair amount of time away, and so you can go out and buy a place, rent it out for 9 months out of the year or whatever. You're only really home a couple months.
Yeah.
If you're playing on a good EuroLeague or a good European team. And yeah, man, you can get into properties at a low price point. So that's the one thing that I do like about it. Not all guys, but a lot of guys come from humble beginnings in inner cities, and you can go buy properties in Detroit for $20,000.
Yeah.
You can buy some properties in some of these cities for little to nothing, relative to some of the contracts that guys are getting. So, spend time learning about it. Maybe reach out to some local brokers, join some real estate investment groups in your local area. And yeah, I mean, truly, like, buying one a year. I remember when my daughter was born, I bought a property in Memphis as like a college fund for her,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was, much cheaper than buying a house in California. But, now she has something that's going to grow over 18 years
Mm-hmm.
From an equity perspective, but also that's, depositing money into a bank account for her for the long haul. And that's something that's passive, that I don't really have to manage too much. And, it's a way to just grow, grow your net worth and your portfolio in a simple manner. So I highly encourage more and more athletes to get involved because not only on the investment side, but, being probably some of the more well-respected and famous people from the areas that we came from, you can leverage that into opportunities with your local cities to do deals and work with them, in any capacity. I'm doing that right now in Compton, right? I'm doing a 75 unit development there, based on just my time in the city and wanting to see, affordable housing come to the city. So.
Yeah, so I mean that was kind of my next question. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you, because a lot of time athletes are afraid of the fear of getting started. So can you talk about, when you bought your first property, and what made you kind of like, just I guess almost like I say is press the button and kind of just kind of go at it. And now let's talk about moving into now. The second question is how many units do you currently have right now? And so those first two questions.
Yeah. So I bought my first property when I got drafted. I bought a house when I was in Atlanta. I bought my mom a house. So that was my first step into real estate. I held those for a long period of time. The Atlanta market got hot again. I was able to sell those, and make some cash there. Then my first kind of project I did a flip project here in Long Beach. Was able to pick up a property from a wholesaler, for $300K. I put some dollars into it. Myself and actually another former basketball player, Jamal Sampson. We were able to be successful in that endeavor. We made some dollars on that, and then I started to understand the inefficiency in trying to do fix and flips if you don't have a kind of full scale operation doing so. And so those dollars were tied up for 6 to 9 months, and it was with the hope of selling and making a profit. So if you don't have a system where you're doing 3 to 5 to 7 to 10 of those a year, it really makes it hard to create a sustainable business. And that's when I then stepped into the larger commercial properties. And so I bought a 12 tenant center here in Orange County, and that was my first larger purchase. And that acquisition has been great for me so far. COVID has created a little bit of a bumpy path, but we've been able to navigate that and figure that out. And then, I got with my former college teammate and roommate, Justin Davis, and we were like, all right, there's going to be a lot of investment that's going to go into these inner cities through opportunity zones. We need to do something about that because we are representative of the community. we got to make sure that we come in there and actually make sure that these investments are impacting the community in a positive way and not just making somebody else richer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we started Lanspire Group, and and now we have a little under 400 units in the pipeline for development.
Congratulations. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And then we were part of the acquisition of a 500 unit hotel here in Newport Beach. And I'm invested as an LP in a number of other properties across the country. So, I haven't actually done a tally on how many units I'm involved in, but
that's a good problem to have.
I'm trying to grow the right way, man.
And
the people, and so, this process for me has been a heck of a learning experience. But I'm happy that I'm going through it with people that I trust and that I know.
Now, many athletes, we get presented with deals, whether or not they're good or bad, all the time. So how have you gone about in your career, especially real estate deals? I know that all the time there's, guys that you get presented with, development deals, or, their friends wants to do this flip, or, that type of stuff. So, how have you been, vetting deals, over the course, of your experience as a player? And then what advice would you give, to other athletes or, other players specifically, about vetting deals and trying to make sure that they find the best deal for them in their investment strategy?
Yeah. A lot of that comes from figuring out, what you want out of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Is it an equity play, where you're trying to, force appreciation? Is it a cash flow play where you just want to get some cash coming in monthly? Whatever your needs are for that investment, I think that's the first thing. Secondly, for vetting deals, it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, just point blank. Like, everybody has a deal and everybody wants to sell you on a deal. And what I would do is I would essentially just suggest either hiring somebody to help you vet the deals, or working with your financial manager to kind of help you on that front as well. I've experienced it on both sides now, where I, as an athlete was pitched, deal after deal, and now as an investor, I'm pitching guys deals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know the difficulty in, can I trust this guy? Is this a good deal? Is this going to be, a 2x, a 3x, am I going to lose money? What's this look like? So it's really difficult to navigate the space. So education is key, but really getting with people you trust. I mean, I've talked to a number of other basketball players about opportunities that they'll show me, say, hey, do you think this is a good deal? I give them my honest feedback, and I'm open to doing that with more guys. It's just a matter of getting an understanding of how serious they are about the investment space before I spend my time and waste their time as well.
Now in the second part of your career, I think sometimes a lot of athletes are afraid because they aren't comfortable in these rooms, aren't comfortable, with speaking with, a lot of these, big name developers and stuff like that. Have you found that, during your time, have you found that there has been any pushback because you're an athlete, or because, people only feel that, that you're only, in this or only part of these deals because of your name and not necessarily because of, other value that you can contribute? Have you experienced anything? And how do you, as an athlete, kind of navigate those waters and kind of put it where you can kind of show people that, that I'm really, like, this is really what I'm really trying to do. It's not just, a money play, or not just because I'm Josh Childress or whoever.
Right. I experience it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, people see athlete first. Now, fortunately, having gone to Stanford, that also is part of my package, right? And so people see that, and there isn't always the same sort of assumption that here's just this, athlete who doesn't know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. But I say all that to say, it's something that you'll deal with for the rest of your life until you are a true professional in this other field.
Mm-hmm.
I experience that on a daily basis. I get meetings because of my background, and then it's on me to actually show up and present and, make sure that they understand that I'm more than what you saw, getting a tip in EuroLeague. Like, I'm an investor, and I'm taking it seriously. And you need to understand that and appreciate that, and take me seriously as well. So it's all about your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm punctual. I make sure I'm prepared, and all those things, just like you would in a basketball game. You watch film. You go through shoot around. You get your pregame nap.
Mm-hmm.
All those things. It's the same qualities that I'm taking into these meetings: discipline, the work ethic, preparation, that I'm taking into this space as well. So, making sure that you marry the two, and you're serious, because if you are, people will take you seriously.
Now, how often are, when you were in the locker room and you were playing, how often are other athletes or other players having these type of conversations about, their investments, their real estate deals, or, what they're interested in off the court, when it comes to entrepreneurship or anything type of business? Because I know that I'm noticing more and more. I feel like when I first came in, that these conversations were something that were almost taboo, like they were something that never happened. But now, recently, over the past 2, 3, 4 years, I'm knowing that younger guys, or even guys in general, are talking about, what they're on or what they're invested in. So how have you seen that? And during your course of your career, like I said, are these conversations, or these topics that are something that are coming up, amongst, the players that you play with or during your time?
Yeah. So a big component of this is guys have access to more things than they had access to before.
Yeah,
right. So
that's very true.
With social media, with Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all these platforms, I can get to a CEO of a company, or somebody that can get to me a lot easier than before. So the access has grown exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, back when I came into the league, it was more impressive, or guys were competing more about your car, your chain, your watch, these sorts of material things.
Yeah.
And I think that shifted now to, what tech company are you in? What do you invest in?
Yeah.
What, how many exits have you had? And so the mentality has shifted. And I think with that, now the conversations have shifted, where guys are much more open and apt to talk about what they're investing in, what they're looking at, versus before. It's a different mentality. The newer generation has a much more open mindset towards it. And, what was cool at one point isn't necessarily as cool now.
Now, I only have a few more questions left, but what are your goals, for the Lanspire Group? Where would you like to see it? You've really, I think you guys started it 2 years ago, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you like to see it, 10 years from now?
Yeah. I would love to see Lanspire Group as a firm in this country that is obviously minority led, minority owned, and is able to hire people from inner cities, and just more people that look like us in the real estate space. I think that that's important. It's definitely a need in commercial real estate, as it's an industry that's not representative of I think the community at large.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to have a portfolio of upwards of 7,000 to 8,000 units, and pushing over $1 billion in value.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd like to create a program where we can provide scholarships to more and more kids at the local level, and also at universities, and really just like be a catalyst for change in inner cities, right? And so being a kind of the go-to group for athletes, but also for other capital to come in and invest successfully, so that we can provide a platform for guys to make money outside of their 9 to 5.
Yeah, man, I think and I mentioned before, I mean, you've been a pioneer, for all of us younger athletes, as far as, with overseas basketball, and just your career, and showing that you can have success on the court. But I think even now, which is even more important, that you've been a pioneer, as far as this real estate game, the things that you're doing, the development deals that you're doing, and how much success that you have had, and how you have the ability to scale up, and in such a short amount of time. I think, like you said, is definitely a motivating factor, for many of us. Like I have, conversations about with one of my guys, Malcolm Delaney, about you, all the time about different things that you do and different real estate things. So I just want to say, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate, like you said, even more what you've done on the court, but, even more what you're doing off the court, that you continue to share and continue to provide content and provide motivation for, for all of us out there. So my last three questions are, what advice would you give to an overseas basketball player or a basketball player or athlete in general that wants to get his start in real estate? They want to know, where do I start? Like you said, you have a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube. There's books, everybody is a real estate guru on Instagram. So, for you, what advice would you give them to, to have their start?
First, write down a list of goals that you want to have with real estate. Is it to buy your first house? Is it to buy a portfolio of houses? Is it to buy an apartment building? Is it to build a community center? What's your goal? So write down a list of 3 goals, and then I would go to a website called Bigger Pockets, which is
I live by Bigger Pockets.
A great resource for individuals starting in the space. I used to suggest reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, but he kind of came out and said some crazy stuff on the racial space. So I don't necessarily funnel people there anymore, but it still is a great tool to shift your mentality towards investing. Then when you're home, do a deal.
Yeah.
I think people have analysis paralysis, and they go and they want to, analyze stuff for, years and years and years, do some research, find a reputable broker in your area. I would shy away from dealing with, family members that don't know what they're doing, because that's usually a recipe for disaster. So find a broker, find a realtor that you trust, and that you build a rapport with, have them show you some options, in the rental space, and, and do a deal. Don't do a large deal, but, do one to get your feet wet, that, can get rented out, while you're gone. And that would be how I would start.
Last 2 questions, and it's kind of similar, but what advice would you give to a young basketball player that is looking to become, not only successful in basketball but successful in life? Like I said, you've been well traveled, you've had plenty of success on the court. So what advice would you give to a young basketball player that wants to have a longevity, a long-standing pro career like you have had?
First thing I would say is reach out to an older player, a guy
That's big.
You look up to, trust, you've heard good things about. It's something that I wish I would have done earlier in my career, that I didn't. But we've gone through a lot, and we've navigated spaces that a lot of other kids shouldn't have to navigate, right? And if we can help them in that regard, I think that it's really a beneficial thing for both sides. So reach out to a player that you think can help you, that's like-minded, that's from your area. I guarantee you most of the guys will gladly help you. So that's number one. Number 2 is, dedicate yourself to being the best version of yourself. So a large portion of that is personal development. You should be trying to read a book a month on, a wide range of topics outside of basketball, right? Get out of your comfort zone, read, something on mindset, read, one of Phil Jackson's books, read Shoe Dog, whatever it is, but, something to kind of get you, more seasoned and more exposed to areas outside of what you're predominantly focused in. And then lastly, I mentioned this in a couple other things, is just write down a list of goals. I think that's one of the powerful things to do, because it forces you to think about what you want to accomplish, and then you have a clearer pathway to doing that if you know what you want to accomplish.
I absolutely agree. And my last question is the question I kind of put everybody on the spot with, to try to transition back to basketball. Talking specifically about EuroLeague, like you said, you played there 2 years. Who was a player that you played against or played with that surprised you? Like I said, you played with some, great players, whether it was Big Sofu or Teodosic or Papa Lucas, and you played
Mhm.
against a lot of great players in that era. So what was a player that you had no idea about, or somebody that surprised you that you played against, during that time?
It had to be Milos.
Yeah,
So,
man.
the dude is just
Yeah,
is, his abilities were just incredible to me because,
yeah,
I think, you look at what he's done, he's had success obviously, but he's a guy that, just his passing ability was unbelievable. And you have these guys that like are successful because they don't care.
yeah,
They don't care about making mistakes. They don't care. That was him.
yeah.
You have these other guys who overthink everything, want everything to be perfect. And I really enjoyed watching him. As a teammate, as a player, as a fan. I think he plays at a high level. So him, and then Spanoulis as well. I
Hmm.
think that what he's been able to do over his career is incredible. I saw him early when he was in the league.
Hmm.
When that didn't go well, but his transition back to Europe and his dominance in Europe has been incredible. So those were the two. I mean, there's so many that I could name
Yeah.
that I'd never heard of or hadn't seen play that were really great players. But those are the two that come to mind first.
And the last question: I'm not sure how much current EuroLeague basketball you get opportunity to watch, but who is your your favorite player to watch currently, or in EuroLeague basketball right now?
Shoot, Mike James.
Mike, my guy, yeah.
Yeah, that dude is a monster.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable, man.
Unbelievable. I mean, the stuff he's
Unbelievable.
doing. He has a total package offensively. And I haven't watched a ton of games. I see
Yeah.
a lot of the highlight stuff on Switch Cultures, but I mean, it's finger rolls from the free throw line, floaters
with
from all over the
both
place,
hands.
step back. I mean, it's just, the offensive package is elite. So I would say he's one of my favorites to watch.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. I know you got a busy schedule and you're doing a lot. Being the CEO of your own company. But I just want to say, man, I appreciate you taking the time. For the on this content and on this format of letting us all know about your experiences, both on and off the basketball court. Man, thank
Yeah,
you so much. And like I said, man, when our teams match up in the NBL, man, we gotta wager something, push ups or something.
for sure. I can't beat you in a push-up game, dog. Got too many muscles for me, but Kyle, I want to commend you, man, on an amazing career. You've done
Thank
a
you.
heck of a job, and I admire you've been able to play at this high level for so long. So keep doing what you're doing, man,
Thank you. I
and keep
appreciate
being
it.
a voice for a lot of the younger generation and the guys in Europe, because they need it. They need the representation. So kudos to you, man. Proud of what you're doing, what you're accomplishing. Just keep going, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot, man.